Hey guys, we're back on the Blue Collar Future podcast, and we have Benchin Bricky in the
The
house.
Benchin
Harrison
Bricky.
Elliott, right?
Yeah, that's it, mate. The Benchin Bricky. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. What do you do?
So I am a bricklayer from the UK, and I've been doing that for. I mean, I started doing it when I was 15 years old. I'm 31 now. Um, it's sort of a family trade. So my dad's a bricklayer, my uncles are bricklayers, um, and I did actually everything to avoid getting into the trade at a young age. I was like, I'm not going to do this. It's more to life than this. So I did the whole education route. I went to university. I did that as well. Came out. Yeah, I played a bit of professional sport at the time. I was coaching and stuff. So went and lived in Australia. In a nutshell, I came back from Australia, and then I was like, right, what? I need a job. And it was kind of like, right, okay, maybe it's time to pick the trowel back up. And that was about sort of 8 years ago now. And not look back from there really, and just since actually getting into it properly, I've developed a love for it, and I've been doing that like consistently for 8 years now, and now I've sort of worked as a foreman as well. So I'm managing sites and a lot of bodies on the site. Um, and yeah, so then I mean, literally the start of this year, I was like, right, I'm going to start doing some socials. Didn't really know what I was going to do with the socials. I was like, I'm just going to start a socials. I didn't have TikTok, I didn't have Instagram. I was like, right, let's start. And sort of the premise of what I wanted to start with it was that we'll post gym content and stuff like that. And it just was really like not doing very well at first. And I was like, right, it's too saturated. It's too saturated. What can I do that no one else is doing? And that's kind of when I sort of got into the humor side of construction, which most people have probably would have, if they've seen my stuff, would have seen those videos floating around. And that's what really like helped my pages take off. Um, and then since there, I've sort of integrated like the health and fitness side of my life into that. Slowly filtered it in as the follower count went up. And yeah, so now I sort of post a bit of a balance between humorous side, trying to keep, because the construction industry is going very serious. Although it is important to be serious, it's kind of losing that humorous side and the character to what it always had. Whilst also posting sort of motivational stuff, about the topics like mental health and stuff, which is quite important to me, and especially industry which is very much neglected. Um, and yeah, and sort of posting about how I manage day to day life and working as a tradesman in the full on lifestyle we have, but also staying in good shape. So I try and filter that into there as well.
Yeah, I see a lot of your gym content and a lot of your humor content. That's how I obviously, like you said, how I got following you. But it's interesting to see because not a lot of people are like that. Not a lot of people go to the gym. There's a stigma that's like, I'm blue collar, I don't need the gym type
Yeah.
stigma. And a lot of people are so held into that they don't even want to change at all.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head when you said that was as a scenario that I could give was like obviously like just eat the food and stuff. And it just popped into my head straight away was like I think of when we sit down for lunch and stuff, and whenever everyone's sat in the canteens and we're having some food, um, the first thing that always is always said, especially by someone who's coming new, is, "God, you eat a lot of chicken, don't you?" But to me, it's just normal. I got to keep my protein intake high to maintain and build the muscle mass, and anyone who's involved in that world knows that. But it's almost like they'll call me the caveman as I'm sitting there eating my chicken thighs and stuff because that's abnormal. They're eating their processed microwave meals and
yeah,
the pot noodles. I don't know if you have anything like that in the US where you just like they have the noodles and they put the water in and stir it, and it's got no nutritional value to it at
yep,
all. I don't know how they run off it. There's nothing in it but empty calories. They're all on that or eating chocolate and stuff like that,
yep,
and that's normal. But me eating like a bit of fruit and some high protein like meat, that's strange.
yeah.
So yeah, that's quite a good scenario to explain what you're saying there, that living like that is abnormal in our world.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
yeah,
it's super normal to do that and also to pop a beer at work while you're eating lunch or something. And
yeah,
then that continues the whole rest of the day and end up drinking into a stupor and then started again the next day. It's
Yeah. They're slow. They've sort of slowly filtered that culture out a little bit in the UK. Um, they do random drugs and alcohol tests now. So the way health and safety's gone, it's sort of filtered that out a bit, but it will still happen, especially on like smaller domestic jobs. But if it's not that, it'll be finishing work straight to the pub, most weekdays or definitely on weekends, from like Friday through to Sunday, and then do it all through the week. And that's just the norm. That's just part of like the society of construction, really. And there's no sort of balance to people's lives at all. It's completely out of sync, and then they just kind of get stuck in a rut and consistently go week to week living like that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a weird stigma that you can't have a balanced life while being in construction, and you can't take care of yourself, and you can't like go to the gym because you don't have time, or there's no balance, or you're too tired, or any of those things. There's always those excuses that are almost industry standard.
Yeah, and I think for most people it's far too easy just to fall back on that and it be accepted. And that's kind of what I try and put across in my content is like, no, like you can do it. There's a lot of examples of people like myself who are doing it and showing that we're not crumbling into messes, that actually living that balanced lifestyle actually enhances my performance at work because I'm fitter, healthier, I'm not as fatigued. A lot of people get like, how do you manage to go after work to the gym, and how are you not like sore? How's your back? I'm like, if I didn't go to the gym, my back probably would be very bad from the bricklaying, but managing the work at the gym actually keeps me healthy and keeps my
Yeah.
mobility and that sort of thing. It helps me if I didn't go to the gym. If I have a few days off, which I never like doing, but if I do have a few days off, I always feel it in work. Like everything starts to seize up a bit, the joints feel a bit tighter. So it does help me, and it sort of helps me in work feel better anyway, which blows people's mind because they're like, oh, surely you're just a cycle of your strain on your body, but you adapt to it and you grow.
Yeah, our bodies can handle way more than we think, which is I think where this is coming from, because we think that we can't handle it. So not only do we just not do it, but there's also a limit in your mind as to what you can do. When I started working out, everybody was telling me that I wouldn't be able to do it and I wouldn't be able to keep doing it because the job's too hard. It was always like, wait until we get busy, or wait until the summer, or like all of these different excuses for why I wouldn't be able to continue. And when I started working out, I saw huge benefits in how I felt, my shoulders, my back, like everything. It was way better. And I
Yeah.
was like, I can't believe you guys aren't even trying this, because a lot of people are sitting there complaining about their back and their shoulders constantly. And I felt like working
I
out
mean,
almost took it away.
when you take a step back and you think about it, I mean, obviously the job, like sort of say bricklaying for an example, like me, there is a lot of physical stress, and you're in a lot of awkward positions, and at times, for 8, 9 hours a day, and then the people will go home and they'll sit on the sofa or the couch, you say, don't you? They'll go
Yeah.
home and sit down, and then they'll sit there all night, and they won't move, and then they'll go to sleep, and they'll lay in that position, and they'll get up and do it again. So it's no wonder over time that's building into poor posture and your back getting feeling awful. Um, so that is why it is, and I try to say that to people, like, it's even more important for us to be going to do stuff that's in the gym or even at home. You can do these things at home, stuff that sort of balances you back out, sort of keeps the posture in check and just keeps everything where you want it to be. Because I'll have days where I go like, oh, my back is sore today, but then I will like sort of rejig how I program my gym session that day, just to make sure I'm not adding too much stress, but that I'm getting out of it what I need to. And that approach has worked really well for me, because then in a day or two I feel great and it's fine. I haven't made any more damage, but I've helped alleviate it. So, but yeah, it's people just don't really get that, but they'll do nothing to help. They'll acknowledge that something's wrong, and then they won't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, what I always say is that the job is hard, and it's hard on certain parts of your body because you're always doing similar movements, and you but you're not ever actively building yourself up. And so if you're not doing things that build up areas that you don't ever use, and that sort of thing, you're going to end up having one day when you get really worn out and you you like move something weird and you're going to tweak or pull a muscle or whatever it is, but that's usually what happens is you wear out certain parts of your body, but nothing is strengthened up to support.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any sort of movement that you do, it's the same repetitive movement, which means that one area is getting hyper stimulated all the time, whereas the opposite supporting area is getting little to no stimulation. So one's overactive and fatiguing, and the other's doing nothing and becoming weaker. So there's no balance there, and that's what causes the issues. Whereas obviously gym work or any sort of exercise can sort of balance that back out. It's like going to the gym and just bench pressing all the time, and then wondering why you've got problems in your back because your back's not getting that work. And it's the same thing in a working environment. You're doing the same movements generally. You're not consciously working an opposite movement. You wouldn't do that. But that, as from a physical sense, that's what you're doing all the time. Mm-hmm. I noticed with the bricklaying that my left side is, if I'm going to get an issue, it'll be on my left side because I'm right-handed, so my trowel's in my right hand, and I've always got the wall generally on the left side of me. So if an area is going to get tight, it's going to be my left. Yeah. So that's why I do things to focus on just keeping the core strengthened on the right. Maybe a little bit more time spending on doing that, and that's kind of what balances things back out. But that's what the little things that people won't think about, but then will wonder why their bodies are literally crumbling or they've got issues on one side and not the other. But I think another good point that I like to say to people regarding the stress of our job is, if you think about a gym and the progression you make in the gym, or you gradually will increase your weight over time, for example, and you build and build and build and build, and then you keep increasing it, hopefully through progressive overload. Now with work, you can't, from the start, there's only a certain period of time that you're overloaded and your body's got to adapt. It's going to
there's no progressive overload.
And you're just going to, your day to day is just going to become a plateau because you can't keep. There's only so much you can do to a point where you've reached it in your trade, where you can't make it physically harder. In fact, the better you get at it, the less physically hard it should be because your skill base is improved. Yeah. So you're not ever, people say, oh, I'm tired. There is the fatigue from standing on your feet in the long hours and the early mornings, etc. But from a physical point of view, you're not providing stress really over that period of time. You might have joint damage and stuff, which is another issue itself. But from a muscular point of view and your nervous system, you're not constantly building and building. Yep. You're gonna get an initial sort of rise and adapt, and then you're gonna plateau and probably could drop off because you skip from a skill perspective or a practical point of view. You've become more efficient, which should in theory make the physical side drop, and it will. But yeah, that's the thing a lot of people seem to miss when they think of how stressful their job is.
That's what I've been coming to that conclusion myself as I'm thinking about it, and about the first 2 years, I'd say that you're starting off in a trade job, it's hard and your body's getting used to it. And that's probably being generous as far as 2 years go, because after 2 years, you're getting better, so the job's getting easier. And like you said, there's no way to make the job physically harder forever. And that's exactly the problem. So people will join a trade job and they will lose weight and get stronger and they'll look better for the first little bit. And then if they're not taking care of themselves, usually they'll regress. And nobody wants to look at that because they saw the initial benefit and they're not putting two and two together that they need to keep doing things to challenge themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the case in point is if you walk on any building site anywhere in the world, not everyone isn't walking around looking like bodybuilders or like an athlete. And no one can argue that point with me. And I won't hear this. You walk on a building site, you wouldn't take any of those physical the characteristics of anyone and just think, oh, there's an athlete right there, or he's a bodybuilder. Like that is very few and far between. And that's a case in point that the trade doesn't create that sort of physical characteristic in someone. It's not, and it can support it in the right sense. But for me, like if I was trying to cut and drop a bit of body fat, working in the trades is great because it's an easy way to not be eating all day because you can. So it's really easy for me to restrict calories. Exactly, I know I've got a set meal time know exactly what's going to go in at that time, and that's the way I would look at it. Or and I'm on my feet, so I'm burning calories. I'm not sat at desk. That's great. You're always going to be have like a high calorie output, which is really great for like when for me when I'm trying to cut body fat or anything. I find it really easy because I cannot. I'm not. I'm also not thinking about eating. If I was
Yeah.
sat at a desk, it'd be a different ball game altogether.
Yeah.
But most people are they'll eat 1,000 calories before they get to work. They'll eat 1,000 calories at their lunch. They'll have 1,000 calories on the way home, and then have to spend all evening eating so that you counteract that effect of being on your feet all day and burning calories. You totally negate that. So, yeah, I think back to the point you're saying, people just use that environment as an excuse to justify a lifestyle that it isn't really in sync with actually what they're doing. They totally negated the positive effects you can get out of working in this job.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because a lot of people, there's just a lot of stigmas. Like you could go down this rabbit hole forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And um, anyways, I think I actually wanted to ask you real quick if you are creating programs that are kind of trade specific, because we did talk about, I mean, you mentioned in your bricklayer job, your left side is underdeveloped, or like if there's a problem, it's going to be there. So are you going to be kind of tailoring things to kind of trade specific, or looking at people's movements and kind of building stuff like
Yeah, I
that
mean,
from
yeah,
there?
definitely. I mean, like, say for example, when I used to coach athletes, you look at the needs of the sport, and that's how you build the program. Like, what movement patterns are they showing? What do we need to be good at? And it's no different for a tradesperson. You can look at different trades and the sort of different patterns that they're going to replicate on a day-to-day basis. Um, and you can look at just developing programs just to alleviate that. Like I say, with the bricklaying, for example, if you're rotating a lot on that one side, and that side's contracted, then what can we do on the right hand side, to counteract that? And it'd be the same with any trade. If we just look at the movement patterns that they're going to perform day to day, and then we go from there.
That would be that was something that I have thought about before, where creating trade specific programs, and I don't know how universal they could be per trade if they have to be individual basis, but most trades would be close enough um, in the industry
Yeah.
that you could reverse engineer their movements and create workout
Just
programs.
like a couple examples off the top of my head, you say like, how a bricklayer to like a ground worker might be quite similar. With, the nature of being bent over, a lot of work at your feet. And you can look at other trades where, the shoulders might be extended above the heads. Plasterboarders, dry liners, plasterers, that's those sort of, and they're in a constant state of extension in the shoulders and hands, like single arms above heads and that sort of thing. So those are different movement patterns altogether. Like a bricklayer doesn't really spend time with one arm raised above his head all day, and a ground worker would, for example. So there are little differences between different trades, and and that's the sort of thing that you could look at and just making sure. But to be honest, the same principles will apply throughout all of them. It's just be like little tweaks here and there, just to support those movements, etc. But I think the foundations, and it's not just for trades, it's for everyone. The foundations of what you need to be training is universal.
Yep.
And a lot of people will try to complicate that. And it's not really sort of my approach. I like to do the simple things really well, and the simple things work, and they've stood the test of time. So it's about doing the simple things and just adding little, decorating where you need to on little things just to support that individual need. Do you know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep. So have you seen the knees over toes guy on Instagram?
Yeah, yes. That's to do with the squatting and tracking your knees over your toes. That guy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they've kind of come to the conclusion that a lot of people, a lot of modern humans are super immobile in their hips because of the amount of sitting that we do. And
yeah,
that causes problems in your knees and in your ankles and your back, like especially your back. People have back problems because of that. So it's
yeah,
interesting to me because they're tailoring programs to kind of modern people to get mobile back to where we should be and how our bodies are supposed to move. And so this sounds to me a little bit like that from a trades perspective. You know what I mean? Like you could almost look I mean, you're taking a little bit different approach, but kind of the same thing of helping people build their bodies up in response to what they do.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's body, although individual, is designed to function in the same way.
Yeah.
Everyone will have individual differences, and we could go through that to a lot of detail. But the foundation of it is everyone's body is designed to do the same things, and then certain activities that people will do repetitively can cause issues,
Yep.
which obviously tradespeople are really exposed to in the environment that they're doing. Same as an office worker who's sat in that crouch slouch position with their shoulders and chest rolled forward and bent over in their spinal day. That's also, not good physically. So it's just about understanding the day-to-day rigors of someone's life and then fixing, putting little fixes in from there. It doesn't, and people think it needs to be complicated. It doesn't. I mean, you could have some serious issues potentially in some cases, but in general, it's just about doing really simple things, but just repetitively doing them. And if you think about, some people spend 40 to 50 hours doing their job a week. Well, that is a lot of damage being done weekly and over months and over years. And then, to be able to counteract that, you're never going to be able to do 50 hours of balancing work back out. But you've got to do something. You've got to do something to help, because it's a lot of time, your body being stressed in certain positions. And in reality, you never can fully negate that, but people need to do something, because otherwise you're just doing 50 hours a week of being stuck in that position or moving in that awkward posture, and you're going home and doing zero to balance it back out. It's only leading one way over the long term.
Yep. One thing I hear people say is they claim that they don't want to live forever, so that they don't care if they're breaking their body down. But what actually happens is you still live as long, but your quality of life is terrible because you have a broken down body. And that kind of goes for a lot of alcohol abuse too. Um, you just end up causing problems for yourself that really don't necessarily shorten your lifespan, depending on what it is, but it shortens your health span. So you just end up being old with a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it, and what I try and tell people, is that there's always a balance, and that you can still, I'm not going to sit here and say that I never like to go to the pub and have a drink with my friends, because I enjoy that. I need that every now and again. But it's all about balance. I like a bit of a nice bit of food every now and again, and going out for a nice meal and not worrying about how many calories are on the plate. But it's about balancing it and having the balance in your favor, that things that you're doing positive things for yourself rather than negative. Most people in our industry, especially, have just got the balance completely skewed, and it's a lot more damage and stuff to them than it is positive. And it's not about taking everything out, because that it also isn't going to work in the long term. If you remove all the things people do enjoy, you just take them out suddenly, what happens? You get a relapse. It's almost guaranteed. So it's just about learning how to improve the balance and make it more positive in your favor, so that in the long term you've got a more sustainable life, and you don't age as quicker. And especially in the trades, if that's going to be your job for the rest of your life, it's a long time to do it and be deteriorating. Especially if you're starting from over in the UK, you come out of school as an apprentice at 16, and you're not some people are not retiring until they're 70. It's 54 years. And if you gradually just deteriorate because your lifestyle doesn't support what you're doing, then I dread to think of how hard those last years must be, because it is tough enough when you're in your 30s and 40s, but if you live in a lifestyle that it's just bringing you down and down, and those 60s to 70s must be just terrible.
yeah, for sure. So what did you go to school for? You told me before we started recording, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I went and did, I'm not sure if you would call it the same. So I did an undergraduate degree, which is, I really don't know how I would compare it to the US, but basically that was a 3-year degree, to which I got a bachelor's of science in sport science and rugby, because I was specifically working in rugby at the time, in coaching, etc. And then I was working as a strength and conditioning coach at the time. And that sort of led me to doing the masters. I was encouraged by who I was working for at the time that do the masters. We'll put you through that. So then I did the master's, and that was in sport, health, and exercise science, which that was just a year-long course, which I did. I mean, that was 2014. I did that. And I did some other qualifications in that time, some external stuff as well, whilst I was actually actively coaching. And that was sort of working in age grade rugby at the time, from sort of 16s up to 18s up to under 20s, and then into like men's rugby as well. So that was kind of what I was doing, and that I was also playing at the time as well. So I was playing in the same sport, I was coaching and playing while studying. So my life was just, it was really good. I really enjoyed that period of my life. It was full on, absolutely totally different to what I do now. It couldn't be further away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of where I was at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you decide to get out of it when you moved back from Australia? You didn't want to pursue
Well,
any.
the thing is, I mean, I think in the environments in the UK, it's actually, I didn't really realize this till it was quite late on, but it's pretty poorly paid, which is probably the main factor. Even like and it's very, very competitive as well. So even to get like a good living salary, which in the UK is, a lot of people aren't living at a good living salary, especially the way the economy is right now. But anyway, yeah, it was kind of like, right, it's not paying that great. I'm gonna have to spend years and years more, just to fight my way up. And then we're looking at the route of like, do I do a PhD? Is that where I need to go? And I was like, oh, I really don't want to be studying again for another 3, 4, 5 years potentially, just to then be at a position where I can earn a good living now. And that was kind of it. And it was obviously I had the route obviously of having the experience previously in bricklayer and had that route that was there. I was like, right. And that was just a decision I made at the time. I was like, right, do you know what? I'm gonna leave that to one side, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back into that. I could see like a path in that, and just went for it there. I knew full well that I could still focus on myself in regards to fitness, health, and stuff. I've been my own guinea pig for the last 15 years in that sense, and I still didn't have to leave that side behind. I could still do it, and it'd just be the coaching side that was just put to one side for a minute. And now, funnily enough, all this time later, now I'm falling back into it. So, it's great that it's good in a way that I'm now getting back into that, working with people sense that I haven't done for so long. But the skills that I learned at that time are still there, and it just by using social media now I've got an opportunity to do that again.
Yeah. Well, my problem with school usually is a lot of people don't end up using their degree. A lot of times it doesn't pay. And I mean, you can go to a trade, get paid to learn, and really make pretty good money.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think back at school, like high school. I think back to then, and it was just drummed into us as early on as possible, like university, or and just get there. Like if you don't go there, you won't make a success of yourself. And no other option was really considered at that point. I mean, obviously, I knew about the trade route from my family, but if you didn't have a family that was working in trades or whatever, it was just pumped into you that the only way that you can make something of yourself was to get to uni. And obviously now, I think it's starting to become sort of that misconception is starting to be broken down slightly, that there are other routes, and working in the trades is one. Especially for people who aren't academic, because not everyone is academic, and you don't have to be academic. There's ways to make money in life that don't require you to be able to be academic as such. There's obviously skills and stuff in our trades that we need to know, and you do learn it in the workplace. But being like physically skilled with your hands, etc., is different than being able to write a 1,000-word essay and regurgitate text. So. And even that, for people who would struggle academically, especially in the UK, it's not really drummed into them enough. I think I find with the UK, there's a massive misconception of construction workers and their abilities. It's also like part of the reason that I enjoy posting stuff on socials, is that I like to sort of break down barriers and show that no, construction workers can do this, they can do that, they have abilities to do other things. yeah, there's a big misconception of I just find in the UK that we're constantly, I feel like we're looked down upon, that society doesn't appreciate our value, um, and that people don't really realize how well a good tradesman can do in life.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people I know graduated, they're working in that sort of graduate role, and they're not making half as much as a really good skilled tradesman in a variety of different trades.
Yeah.
And now that everyone's looking, going, oh well, they've done all right though. You know, the people who weren't academically gifted, there's still a real good option to it, and there's a massive shortage, especially in the UK, of skilled workers coming through. And I think it's a worldwide thing from what I can gather. And obviously, I think the average age in the UK is in its 50s of construction workers. And I think I think there's something like for every 7 or 8, there's only one skilled following in behind. So you're losing a drastic amount. So for people who want to get in at this point, it's such a good opportunity, because in 10 years' time, you know, they're going to be the prime pick in their field for that trade, because there's no one following in behind. But people aren't prepared to take that time to, you know, be the apprentice and do that time where they are generally poorly paid, and, you know, you're at the bottom of the ladder and it isn't very appealing. But if you can stick at it and learn, like, there's so much that, you know, potential for the future.
Well, how is that less appealing than spending money to go to a university for 4, 6, 8 years, however long?
Yeah,
Especially if you didn't get scholarships to go.
yeah.
That's
I mean, the
so
fees. I
I
think
went to
the fees in the UK now are astronomical. I mean, I think they're like, you know, compared to what when I went, the fees are just, I think they've like quadrupled since, you know, the fees that I would have paid then. It's just it's crazy amount of money that's being borrowed and stuff that being paid back, and, you know, in most cases the majority of people will never pay that back. They'll never be able to, and
yeah.
then they're also not utilizing that skill that they learned either. So it's, you know, when you take a step back and you think of it like that, it's actually crazy.
Yeah. It
Whereas
is.
you could start at 16 to 18, and actually, although you're getting paid a low amount, you're getting paid and you're
Yeah.
earning money, as opposed to spending it to learn. And I do try and remind our apprentices that every now and again when they're having a little moan about being on a low wage. Just remember, your friends are still in school, not earning money, or they're going off to uni and they're spending money that they don't have, while you're earning. And give it a couple more years, and you're going to see.
Yeah. Well, even if people after a 4 or 6 year degree end up making more than the similar amount of time in a trade, even if that happened, they still have all that debt, like you said, to pay back. And a lot of people don't
Mhm.
end up paying it back. And it's just getting
No.
more and more expensive. So I think the college route is getting less appealing. It's getting
Yeah.
less popular. But there's still a long ways to go because, like you said, it's drummed into everybody to go. I never heard any other option. It was always go to university. That was what every single teacher, adult, whatever, tells any kid. What are you
Yeah.
going to go to school for?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's just everywhere, isn't it? You watch films, you watch TV shows, and that's the question that a kid will get asked in it, and it's just that's what society expects. Um, and, you know, you don't really ever. It's only ever asked in that scenario of if a kid isn't very good at school or whatever. It's like, well, you go work in a trade, and it's like, so it's that looking down approach that
Yeah.
is constantly always there, no matter where you are in the world. I mean, I in my time in Australia, it was probably the one place that I lived that actually I do think tradesmen are quite well respected there.
Yeah.
Definitely as opposed to the UK.
Yeah.
In my experience, like that, you know, a tradies living the dream over there,
Yeah.
and they're well respected for what they do. Whereas I don't think it's the case in the UK. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's definitely not in the UK.
I I think the same. It's similar in the U.S. And I actually had somebody on my podcast from Australia, and I was explaining kind of some of the stigmas and how tradespeople are looked down upon a little bit. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't think it's like that here." And I was like,
No,
"Really?"
I don't think so. Not in my experience there. When I worked there, it was you know, they were held in a lot higher regard, um, in general than definitely in the UK.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Which is funny because we need tradespeople to keep building our society. Because I mean, everywhere you go, every country, there's not enough housing. The roads need to be um, redone, or new roads need to be put in, new buildings, new businesses to support our growing economy and population. And without the tradespeople, we can't do it. So it's funny that there is a stigma of them
Yeah,
being
it
looked
doesn't
down.
make it doesn't make sense. I mean, every time, say for example, on socials, when I get a lot of comments, or just say like, "You're just a bricklayer," um, you know, and I'm like, just have a look around at the room you're sat in, and then think, "Oh, how did that appear? Who did
Yeah.
that? Somebody did that. Do you know how to do that? No, you need us."
Yeah. Well, I saw you put on your story a response to somebody's question. They were asking why you were on the trowel if you have a master's degree.
Yes, yeah,
I was
it
laughing.
was earlier. It was actually earlier today, but again, that kind of literally that my response reference to entirely what we've just been talking about was that, you know, as a trader, I'm earning more than most graduates, um, and yes, the skills that I've learned during that time I'm now put into use in other ways. But if that wasn't an option, then I'm still as a tradie, like having living a lifestyle and earning an X amount that a lot of graduate jobs wouldn't be able to provide, and
Mhm.
that's just not like a misconception that people just don't understand um, about different tradespeople.
Yep. Yeah, that's about my experience. I went to school as well. I went for electrical engineering, and then I switched to web development and was doing the same thing. I was going to get out of the trades, I thought. And then I started to think like, well, I don't hate this like I thought, and I don't really think I want to go to school anymore. And it
Mm.
was an interesting thought change to come around because I felt like I only disliked trade work because of the fact that it was looked down on when I was
Yeah,
growing up. So,
I think that's something actually like in the early days of bricklaying that I struggled with a little bit because, you know, I went from I would go from sometimes playing sport in front of thousands of people, and then I'd be on site and I'd be like, it'd just be like that. It'd just be like, it's just not as glamorous. Just a bricklayer. People don't respect people don't respect me. And like, you know, I can think back to those early days of being like, ah, oh, is this and that being something that got in my head at the time was like, but then I took a step back. I'm like, no, this is just I'm just going to work like anyone else goes to work in their field, whether it's not construction based or not. I'm just doing my job. I'm earning a living. I'm learning skills. I'm doing something that is productive to the economy. Just take a step back, and then I mean now I don't perceive that. I'm actively out there, like trying to bring a bit of value to what we do and raise sort of the awareness of how important tradespeople are,
mm,
and trying to break that stigma because I don't believe it shouldn't be there. But I
yeah,
do remember myself having it, especially in the early days,
yeah,
and then thinking, no, this is. And that's probably if I think back initially to when I was like, I'm not going to be a bricklayer. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to university. I'm going to do this, and that would have been probably the what was in my head as the reason why I didn't want to do it because it's not glamorous enough. I wouldn't be respected, and that's probably parcel of the reason that sort of led me to that route
yeah,
of doing that. But yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
let's talk
yeah,
more specifics about your coaching program and maybe what people can do to get started for themselves.
yeah.
Um, so,
So yeah, so the plan is at the minute basically well, I mean by the time this is aired anyway, the website link will be fully live on my page. There'll be a link in the bio, so that'll be on the Benchin Bricky TikTok page and the Instagram page, and from there people will fill out a form. They'll provide the details that are required. They'll get put through to us. We've got a team working behind us. We've got a sales team. They'll probably get led to them first, just to help me manage the workload. And then once they agree to sign on, there's a couple of various levels of packages, basically based on the individual needs. Once they're signed on through that, then they're going to get put through to me, and then we get to work basically. And the premise of what I want to do is that I'll get someone who'll come in and they'll go, this is what I want. This is my current situation. This is what I do day to day. This is my trade, for example. This is where I want to be in a year's time. This is where I want to be in 6 months. And then I will construct a plan with them, basically to help change their life. That's kind of what I want to do. I do believe that I can help change lives and make people's lives better. Not necessarily just from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective as well, and just have a whole round positive impact on their life. So the service will provide training plans that are customized based on what they want, whether they want to build muscle, lose fat. It'll be a fully customized nutritional plan. It'll be down, we can make it as detailed or as undetailed as the person would want. I can split it down to macro splits and calories, and they'll have fully supported recipes. They'll even get shopping lists that they can just print off and take to go and match that sort of that recipe list that's designed to match their nutritional requirements. So it's really detailed stuff. And also within the app, I'm going to have build community groups. It might be trade specific ones. We might have an electrician group or bricklayers group, for example, or there might be a group focused on mental health. That'll all sort of depends on how it builds. But we've got groups in there, and it'll also have constant access to me basically as a support. So every week there'll be weekly check-ins where we can keep on top of their progress or where they're not making progress. And I'll work with that client to basically make sure they're on track and keep tweaking with them to guide them on the right path that they ultimately want to get to. We got, there'll be habit builders in there, because I think that habits are fundamentally crucial to sort of living that life. And I think that it's people with good habits always end up where they want to be. People with bad habits don't. It's simple as that. So a lot of it will be about building good habits in this sort of hectic lifestyle as a tradesman. Not necessarily just as a tradesman. Anyone who wants to get involved with it can. That's just sort of the premise of what we're focusing the product that is with tradesmen. But it'll just be me utilizing my experience and my knowledge and helping them build a life that they really have. And it doesn't necessarily, they don't have to go in there and train like me. They're not just going to get my program and go, there you go. It's about building something that works for them. And I want to build something sustainable for each person that comes to me that they can still be doing in a year's time, essentially. Building a life that they can manage in a year's time. I don't want to just push what I do onto someone. It's about helping them build the same way that using the same tools that I used to build my lifestyle now. Everybody's individual needs will be different. But yeah, I mean, I've gone on there, but yeah, basically in a nutshell, that is what I'm looking to build with each client that comes to me. So it's pretty in-depth stuff. And I believe that it's a product that will help change people's lives if they really want to invest in it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the habits I think are the biggest benefit, I would say. So I see a lot of people get into working out, and whether they get on a diet or whatever it is, but usually they do something that's unsustainable, and then they fall off after 2, 3, 4 months. Even if they see improvements, they just fall off the map. And when I started working out, was doing 3 days a week and just continued that. And everybody gives me crap for that, but also nobody at the same time believes it. So you have a stigma of people think that they need to work out 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But also, if they see you and you say you only work out 3 days a week, they don't believe it because they see your strength or size or like whatever it is. So there's a lot of stigmas there to tackle. What are you going to be? What is your training going to be like? Is it going to be, every day, or?
I mean, it would literally be based on working around that client's lifestyle. And just going back to what you said there is a really good point, because why most people fail is because they start at zero. They go from training 0 times a week. They've got poor diets. They've got poor lifestyle habits, and then they go and flip it to the other end of the scale, and they'll go and train 4, 5, 6 times a week. They'll go on heavily restricted diets where they've taken out all the foods that they like. They'll go on a complete new diet. They'll change all the things up. They'll take everything out of their life they enjoy, and then they'll do it. They might handle it for a month or two, and then they'll crash, and then they'll fail, and they'll go back to square one. And there's a repeated habit. There's one habit people like that seem to have, is they like to go through that process a lot. They'll go one extreme to the other, crash, burn, try something else that's similar, and they do that and do that. And then over time, they don't get anywhere. So for me, it's more about taking someone from ground zero and going, right, let's analyze your life as it is right now. What are you eating? How are you training? How are you not training? How do you sleep? How much water are you drinking a day? Like, what things do you do that you enjoy? What habits do you have that are destructive potentially? Let's look at everything, and then let's just tweak small things at a time, small steps, because by taking out small things at a time, it's not as much of a drastic impact on your life. And if things aren't drastically changing your life, you're more likely to be able to keep doing that over a longer period of time. It's about building a life that you can sustain. Yep. There's no point training like a madman for a month, but then in 12 months' time, there's no chance of you doing it. And that's the approach, and I'd like to try and get in people's heads. Yep. Is if you want to invest in this, be prepared that this is a long-term investment, a bit like investing in money. You're not going to see initial returns within a month, or even, you've got to be prepared to invest in this, and make gradual changes. And that's sort of how the premise of the coaching will be. It'll be like, let's make small changes, because there's no point chucking a ridiculously hard training program on someone, making them eat 1,000 calories under their metabolic rate every day, and then going, right, there you go, see you in 4 weeks' time, well, let's check in, because I can guarantee what the result will be. Some might do it, and then they'll crash after, or some are just, there's absolutely no chance. It's just about working with people and tweaking little small things, so that I can build them and build them and build them and build them, so that they're still doing it in 6 months, and they're still doing it in 12 months. And in a couple of years' time, they've learned enough as well. I mean, the ideal situation with any coaching is you actually teach people that they don't need you at some point. I know most people would say, let's keep them on the rabbit wheel and keep them paying. But really, if you're going to be a good coach, you should be coaching people that you're helping them build a lifestyle and habits that they can then go off and do on their own. And they don't actually need you anymore if you're really coaching well. So that's sort of how my outlook will be, is just sort of helping people and make a lifestyle they can sustain, in the same way that I've been able to sustain my life and how I train for years and years now without crumbling. And I can do it because I've got the balance right for me. And it's about helping people get that balance. It might not be that people even go and weight train, for example. Their exercise form might come in different modes. It's just about getting to that person and what makes them tick, and what they can follow, and what they can do, what they can eat, how often they need to have a bit of food that isn't necessarily so good for them, but it keeps them on track. There's so many different factors to it, but it's that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah. I like what you said there. It's about building that sustainability, and people will not see the results, and then they'll fall off. So you get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't see the immediate benefit, because it's a long-term investment. Not something that you start doing with the intention of being done at some point. It's just a continual, if you look at it like that, of a continual life journey, it's much easier to realize, oh wait, I can just do this a few times a week and keep doing it, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
For me particularly, I don't ever really see changes in myself, but other people do, because they usually come so small to me that I don't even I don't even notice a difference between me and what I was 5 years ago. But I still have people every other year telling me, oh man, you look huge, or you look so much bigger. And I'm like, really? I'm just working out, I'm just going.
And that just highlights the case of the time. It's investing that time in it, and putting that in it. You won't see those initial short-term results. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But by keep doing the same positive things repeatedly, there is no way that in time you won't see those results back. It's just being prepared to put the hard effort in and stick at something, and not walk away from it and not give it up. And the scenario is, when tradespeople don't understand this, for example, it's quite funny, because all of them have invested a lot of time to get from when they walked onto site for the first time as an apprentice to get to that skill position. And they all understand that premise when it comes to that you've got to put the time in. You've got to learn your trade. You've got to do your time. It's exactly the same principle when you look at your body or your mental, or the mental aspect, or any health aspect. You've got to put the time in to get the results out at the end. It's the same principles for anything in life. If you're not prepared to put some time into it, and be prepared that you're not going to see things initially, then and that's why most people fall off in anything they do in life.
Yep.
And it'd be the same with me and you doing our socials and stuff. If we just gave up after the first couple of weeks when I've only got like 5 followers, nobody's liking my posts, and I'll just give up. But and you get through that time and you keep posting and you keep tweaking and you keep improving, and then in time you will see results and you'll grow a follower base. Or it's the same with anything. It's just putting that time in.
Yep. The time and the consistency of showing up and actually trying to be better and do better. I mean, if you look at it, that's really all that matters, no matter what you do, is putting that time in and being consistent with it. Because if you're being consistent and you're consistently putting a good effort in, then you're going to get better, and it's all going to be, you're just going to keep getting better over time.
Yeah, I do really believe that if you consistently work hard at something, it will reap rewards some way. Never in any realm of the universe is hard work never paid off. It will in some way. It's just you just got to be patient for it, or it might come in another way that you didn't recognize, but it always will in some way come back and pay off. So yeah, that's sort of the premise of what I'm trying to would get across to a client if they come to me. That's about building a life, and also like seeking like the small wins. A lot of people are looking for the big end goal all the time, but not recognizing the small wins that are right there in front of them that you need to be able to recognize to keep you going, to keep you motivated. Because there will be like little daily ones, there will be little weekly ones, and it's about recognizing that. It might be about little tweaking a habit that you've done from day to day that you were doing before that wasn't a good habit, but like removing it and not being a conscious thing, for example, that you're consciously not doing that habit, and then be like, that's a win. Like you've just removed that poor habit from your life, and we're not in the long term, the benefit that's going to bring you. Like, so it's about recognizing that and having someone there just to keep you accountable, by your side, and go, like, now you did, that's good. Give you that credit with credit's due. And save you that, and then we'll go again. And then what's the next? Small wins. To get to that sort of big goal in the end.
Awesome. Well, Harrison, it's been an awesome talk. I'm glad to have you on. It's always cool to talk to people from different countries.
It's cool. Yeah,
I quite enjoy that. The social media is insane that we can be connected so far away. But
yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. So we'll close it out here. I'll let you get to bed.